everyone. I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money-colored commentator. On today's show, the decision-making process for executives and business owners. Part 5 in our series on financial security through tax advantage strategies with nationally recognized retirement authority, Charlie Day. Charlie, welcome to the 5th segment.
Thank you. This has been quite an experience for me.
Well, Charlie, I have to say, you know your stuff. You are one of the top patriarchs. You're a member of the American Academy for Actuaries. You're an enrolled actuary yourself. You're a CLU. You have so many credentials, ACA on top of it. But, you know, when people are making decisions, I mean, there's a lot of math here. There's a lot of law here. You said you might need to talk to your ERISA guy. You may need to talk to a person of your actuarial status. You may have to get a professional life insurance guy in there because he's going to have to be the trustee for this. So there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of personnel on your team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it takes a, but is it worth it? Well, you can either deduct $204,000 or $539,000.
Right.
I think that's worth it.
And of course, if you can qualify mama, you could take it up to over $1 million.
Well, I like that. In our last segment, we talked about that very thing. Remember, we were talking about how you said that now I have them, they're both in the same plan, and I moved it from 30 grand to 250,000 legally. And that was, what did you call it? Reasonable compensation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you need to have the advisor to buy onto that.
Well, hopefully he will.
The CPA.
Okay, now, let's walk through the process, because I want to get this all in before we close out our segment.
Right. All right. The first thing we do, Steve, is we can't expect a client to retain us up front. So we provide a preliminary proposal based on as much data that we can possibly get. If there's an existing plan, an existing lump sum based plan, we need to have existing plan documents and census and stuff like that and a feel for the client's objectives. So the preliminary proposal, we do a lot of analytical work up front before we get deep into the operation of the plan. And that gives the client a decision-making basis. Once he's ready to make a decision, we enter into letters of engagement. And that establishes our commercial and professional obligation to him. And from that, we produce what I call a certifiable plan design, one that I can go to the IRS and approve the deduction. When the client signs off on that, then another letter of engagement is involved to produce the document. And there we create a document using our volume submitter, which has all the special language that make these things happen. And then the guy is street legal.
How long does that take, these steps?
That usually, well, at the end of the year, it takes less than 30 days. But if we are not up against crunch time, I find clients will take 90 to sometimes 6 months to make a decision or even push it into the next year. The final aspect is the annual administration. We as a firm manage every aspect of the administrative aspects of the plan because we want to make sure that the operation of the plan conforms with the terms of the document. And that's the range of the process. So the first step would be the fundamental choice of whether you consider a lump sum based plan or a benefit-based plan. And as we've talked about in the earlier segments, there's a profound difference between the two.
Can I stop you there for a second? Because I just had a lightning revelation. We're heading towards the end of the year, Charlie. If I have people watching this, can I still get this done by the end of the year?
Yeah.
And the deduction?
Yes. If you have an existing plan, you have 2.5 months after the close of the year to make all the necessary amendments. If it's a new plan, documents have to be executed no later than December 31st. So it's advisable to get into the queue as quickly as you possibly can.
Carry on.
All right. So step one is understanding the fundamental difference between the two. The next step is the plan platform, the legal structure. And basically, if it's a one-person, two-person family members, then just one defined benefit plan is necessary. Right. Cover both of them. If they want some supplemental deductions, we can add a defined contribution plan on top of it. Now, for those who have employees, the cross-testing of two plans comes into play. And this is a very technical, sophisticated approach to minimize the cost of the employees. And a good rule of thumb that you can apply as to whether or not this will be of value to you is look at your total payroll. Take 7.5% of that payroll. So let's say you have $1 million worth of payroll. 7.5% would be $75,000. That's a safe harbor testing percentage that you can put into a defined contribution plan, which would allow you to set up a benefit-based or a cash balance plan or any other form of plan and focus the coverage on the key people in your organization. And that is less expensive than covering everybody in one plan. Now, the next step is determining the cost elements. Now, the first decision is the form of benefit. Will you be funding based upon you, the participant's life expectancy, or will you be funding based on you and your wife's life expectancy? The difference being that the 100% joint and survivor annuity form is the most valuable form under the code, but you can't have it in a lump sum based plan. You can only have it in a benefit based plan. The next element that we see is incorporating the incidental death benefit. We saw what that cost would be if you added a pre-retirement death benefit. And we saw what that cost would be if you added a pre- and post-retirement death benefit. This latter benefit can be combined with the 100% joint and survivor benefit, and we saw that in the age 52 that cost was up around $540,000 versus the life only under a lump sum of $200,000, and that we had to spend about $100,000 in an insurance premium to transfer that risk and have it paid up and guaranteed for as long as the plan operates. Now, there are other benefits that we can add under a benefit-based place, and that is a disability benefit and a post-retirement medical. However, there's an exclusion under 401H of the code that excludes owners of businesses. So you would only extend that benefit to employees. So those are your three fundamental decisions: lump sum or benefit focused. What platform do I use? Do I minimize my employee costs, or do I just cover it for myself? And then what is the magnitude of the deduction that I want to achieve, and how I can dial up that magnitude, all of which is done under 436 of the code, and every actuary should come up with the same numbers. Because with PPA, we are tethered to this section of the code for determining the costing of benefits. So the only way you can change the magnitude of a deduction, Steve, is how you define the benefits that you're providing in the plan.
I have a question. Sometimes when you're talking about the benefits at the very bottom, and you say, well, you can get a 100% joint survivor, does that push the person over to the defined focus plan because he says that benefit is so good? Let's
Absolutely.
Try to so that's a play.
You can't have that benefit under a lump sum focus plan. You can have a joint and survivor benefit, but it gets actuarially reduced because everything's driven off of a single life.
So that sometimes will be the thing that actually pushes you over to the defined focus plan.
Right. Okay. So in this preliminary proposal process, we try to customize as early as possible a hypothetical plan that reflects the client's demographics and financial goals. We do a detailed financial projection that you saw in the earlier segments where we showed the costs going up every year. We have found that we are one of very few firms that actually give a hypothetical projection of where this plan can go and what flexibility you have down the line. And that is the big takeaway from those sheets, is that if you put in the maximums for the first 4 years, you have total flexibility. You can actually pass on making contributions for several years. So it's like that Purelator, hey, pay me now or pay me later. You put more up front and you have total control down line. Once the client, you or your client, has made a decision to move forward on the preliminary analysis, then we enter into a letter of agreement where we produce a certifiable proposal. And that fee is $4,500. And we do whatever it takes to make sure that the client has exactly what he wants. He then says, okay, fine, thank you, or I'm ready, what's the next step? And the next step would be entering into a letter of engagement to produce the plan documents. And if we're doing the management of a lot of employees, we would have two documents. We would have the one where we would have to restate the existing 401k profit sharing plan to coordinate it with the defined benefit plan so we minimize the costs of the employees in the defined benefit plan. And we, in some cases where the client and his partner want to have separate plans, then we have separate plans, so there's some additional fees, but that cost runs from anywhere from $3,500 to $4,300.
All these fees are deductible.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Right. Finally, once the documentation is done, you're street legal and you're free now to make your contributions. And on the filing deadlines, we produce an actuarial valuation that certifies to your contribution range. We do all the IRS and pension benefit guarantee filings, and the actual administration fees are really a function of how many plans do we have, how many participants, and so forth. But it could range anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 or higher if we had 100 employees. I mean, we have clients in the 300 live range, so that'd be a lot more expensive. But those are your basic fee structures for this process. First is the preliminary proposal. There's no fee. When the client wants to go to the next step, which is a implementable proposal that we can certify to, that has that fee of $4,500. Then he's ready to document it. They have the documentation fees, and then the final is the administrative process.
This is a huge idea for people, and I've heard you right. We can still do this by the end of the year.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a big, strong thing. I appreciate you coming in and talking about it. This is way beyond our normal defined benefit and defined contribution plan discussions that we have on this show. I think this is really the edge and really the leading harbinger of really looking at defined benefit plans with extra benefits, living benefits, by the way. I like all that, and I think it's a huge. I love the deductions. And I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank Charlie for sharing this series on the financial security through advisement strategies. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money.